get yourself a cup of coffee. Well, good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from Northern Maine, the Rustic log cabin. Welcome to my shop today. Well, that was way too much fun. So, I think before I start drilling some holes, I think I want to maybe drill some more holes with the 44 Magnum. I'm in a mood. That means I've watched the news. Oh, shoot. Besides that, you never want to be caught with an empty gun. That was so much fun, I think I'm going to do it again. And then I'll get started. That ought to wake up the neighbors. Oh, goodness. All right, time to go to work. What are we working on today? Well, because of the climate that we find ourselves in, you know, there's a great possibility of food shortages. If not food shortages, things are just plain going up. I mean, you got to be a complete nincompoop to not notice the price going up. I mean, the price of gas going up. Or the prices in the grocery store. All that stuff. And if you're saying that that's not true, then you're a complete fool. Because you believe in your own lie. My wife went to the grocery store 2 days ago and she said there's a lot of stuff missing off the shelf. Well, I've been with my wife for 40 years. I believe her and trust her. If she comes to me and she tells me there's stuff missing off the grocery shelf, then there's stuff missing off the grocery shelf. So how do we fix that here? Well, how I fix it is I built some traps. These right here are eel traps. I'm going to fix our pantry and add to our pantry with these eel traps. I did a video earlier today on making fish pies and stuff like that. Well, these traps are going to be a big part of that, as well as my firearms. That's why I brought that firearm in here this morning. Maybe not that particular one, but firearms are a big part of my lifestyle and they help put food on the table. My name is Tom. The other thing I'll be doing is I've been setting up and getting permission for trapping on land that's not mine. That's the way the law is in this state. And that takes a little bit of time to go meet some farmers and some landowners and get written permission. Can't just get permission over the phone. You got to meet up with them and get written permission to be able to trap their land. So I'll be trapping. My plan is to trap for raccoons. Because a raccoon is the perfect size for a Dutch oven. It's also the perfect size for making a meat pie. Stuff like that. So there's many things that I can do with a raccoon. The other thing with a raccoon is that there are no laws on limits. You'll have to forgive the traffic in the backyard, I'm not going to say sorry for it and all of that. Right here is where my shop is. This is where I get this stuff built for the Rustic log cabin, as well as the Beaver Creek deer camp. This is my shop where I build everything that you see that makes up my lifestyle. The ice is finally out on the lake that I fish for lake trout. So now it's time to start working on these traps. I should have had them done a long time ago. I'm behind the 8 ball, but I will finish them up today. This will make 20 brand new traps for me this spring to add to my collection of last year. So that'll put me up over right around somewhere 40 traps. There's no limit on eels, and they're great in the freezer and in cannon jars. So it's a beautiful fish for me to go after. And I don't have to tend these things. While I am lake trout fishing, I will take the day before and I will go set out all of my eel traps. And then I won't touch them again until the end of the week. So 7 days later, I will go check my eel traps along with a big cooler. And with any luck, I will pick up hopefully an eel per pot. Wouldn't mind 2 eels per pot. We'll see. What I'm after is 100 eels for the freezer and cannon jars. So that will get me well on my way, and then I will take them back to the Rustic log cabin where I will can them up, put them into canning jars, and they will be prepared for future use here in my pantry. I love to eat eel, so this is a big part of my fishery. So with that, I'm going to get started. And every once in a while, we're going to squeeze the trigger on that 44 Magnum, just because I can. I guess I can't. I come to you from the great state of Maine. I got a lot of brand new viewers. Brand new. In the last 28 days, I've picked up over 300 new subscribers. So that tells me the channel is booming. And I would like to thank each and every one of you that have helped that. But I want to welcome all of my new subscribers. So welcome to the East Grand channel. As you'll find, this is a community of some pretty good guys. Every once in a while, I'll bust somebody's chops, and every once in a while, they'll bust mine. Now, I don't have time, all the time, to just sit down and chew the fat. So, if you guys don't want to stay for this video today, that's fine. I just figured, you know, while I'm working, my mind kind of races. You know, just the way it is, you know. I don't trust the government right now. I don't trust the doctors right now. I don't trust the food supply right now. Which is nothing new. I mean, I've been at this a long time. My lifestyle wasn't something that I just picked up the other day. How was I saying? My lifestyle isn't something that I just picked up the other day. Fishing and hunting and being a gatherer is a lot different than a trophy hunter. And I got nothing against trophy hunters, it's just that's not been my deal. I was taught that if you're going to kill something, you're going to eat it. Now that doesn't mean that I don't like to wait in the fall for a big one. Especially at my age. What I mean by that is I've shot a lot of deer. I've shot a lot of bears. I've had none of them mounted. But I always told people, if I ever do decide to mount one, then you might want to come over and see it. Because it'll probably be a big one. Oh, I'm not knocking anybody that mounts heads. That's just never been my deal, that's all. Especially when it comes to bear hunting and all of that. You know, the best bear for the table is the bear that you get in the freezer as soon as possible. And I feel the same way about deer. Now I don't, you know, when I first got into deer hunting, November was colder earlier. You know, there was a lot of times that I was froze out of the swamp by the second week of November. And now you can hunt the swamp sometimes right up until December before it freezes over. Well, this means it's time for coffee. This eel pot will cost me $3 more this year than last year, because the price of buckets went up. But it will last me a long time. Now there's the bottom finished. Now the only thing I gotta do with this eel pot when it's not in use is keep it out of the sun. Now what I've done is put holes all the way around it. The reason for that is because I'm going to put an eye bolt in here and I'm going to lift the pot up this way. So I want water to be able to run out the bottom as quick as possible when I get to the surface, so that I'm not dealing with a heavy bucket of water to get the eel out. There's the inside. One thing we don't need on here is this metal handle. That doesn't mean you throw it away, because it's a trapper. This can be a useful piece of equipment. You can use this to help, like with me, I'm going to bait my raccoons before I trap them. So these bucket pieces can be used to help hang the bait buckets from the trees. So getting back to that deer and stuff like that, if you're still around, and all you new guys, this channel is a real channel. I do absolutely nothing for the camera that I don't need to do in my everyday life. In preparation for the upcoming winter. I think what I'm going to do, see that hole there? That hole that had the bucket handle? That's the hole I'm going to use to put my eye bolt in. See the eye bolt? And how you accomplish that is with 2 washers. Now eels, especially here in the east, now I probably can't talk about south of the Mississippi River, but I'm pretty sure I can talk about north of the Mississippi. And I have people all over this country that watch this channel. So if you can add in the comments in your area, more than welcome. Eel are in the Northeast in probably every body of water. Now my primary place that I want to run these traps is up at the cabin. For a couple of reasons. One is I think they're big. I actually say I know they're big. And I also know that no one is trapping that area. Anytime that I'm not in that area, I live on a lake right here. I moved here 40 years ago before land around water it was expensive. I sit on 3.5 acres of land here that abuts the swamp. I can get in the boat, go under the bridge, and I'm in the lake. And the lake is 14 miles long and in areas 4 to 5 miles wide. So, and it's rocky, very rocky. And I believe that that's probably pretty important when it comes to eel trapping. I switched over to I got a Home Depot bucket that you see over there. I went to Harbor Freight. Their buckets were the same price. But what I think the lids are a little bit better. What I don't like about the Home Depot buckets is their split lid. And this one's kind of, so I think it will last longer. So I decided I would give that a try. So now my buoy line will hook here. The bucket will pull up like that. So anyways, what was we talking about? We were talking about the eel. I can trap eel here. I can trap it at the cabin. I also have a lake that's about 10 minutes from here that I catch eel with hook and line. So I'm planning on putting some traps in there as well. Some people might think I'm crazy. Wouldn't be the first and probably won't be the last. But I do believe in planning ahead. The reason that we plan ahead here in the state of Maine is because of our winters. You know what they call that, don't you? They call that a whoops. They call that hang on to the bucket better. I've always believed, not always believed, always had to. In the state of Maine, winter comes fast. Winters are long. So, and I was a contractor. So you always plan for a long winter. Some years you'd start in the middle of winter and work all winter. Some years it wouldn't start until tourist season. So this idea of planning ahead is nothing new for this household. Always done it. When I first got married, we had very little money. Very little money. Why my wife married me? It definitely wasn't for my money. When we got married, we received $120 in gifts. We only took a 3-day honeymoon in New Hampshire because we didn't want to spend the money. Telling you all this, tell you this. We had to save that $100 that we got. We didn't spend it all on our honeymoon because we had no food when we got back home. She moved into the apartment that I was renting, and we had no food and we had no money. We both had jobs, so we were able to take care of our bills that way, but we lived on a very tight budget for years and years and years. On Friday, I gave my wife my paycheck. I kept $5 for spending money for the week. And she took the rest and she paid the bills with it. Now, when we got back from that honeymoon, we needed to buy salt, pepper, and that kind of stuff because I'm telling you, we had nothing. I was 19 and she was 23. And that's where we began. And what I would do back then is I would go fishing in the summertime and the winter, just like now, but it was way more important because that fish that I put in the freezer was going to be my meals for that upcoming year. And it also knocked down the grocery bill, which I've always been a part of here, knocking down the grocery bill. I don't expect my wife to eat what I eat. She does once in a while, as far as wild game. But if I can knock down what I need, then that helps out our grocery bill. And that is why you see these traps going out. These traps will be fishing 24/7 while I am lake trout fishing. At the end of the week, I will take what fish that I caught and I will can them up. Some of them I will smoke. If you look in my archives, I've got over 400 videos now that I've been putting together over the last 5 years. Each and every one of those videos, in some way, shape, or form, has something to do with being self-reliant. And self-reliant means a lot of things. Not just the ability to go out and catch your food and shoot your food. Anybody can do that. Get a gun and go shoot an animal. Anybody can do that. That's easy. The hard part comes into preparing that animal for the table. Whether it's these eels, or a bear, or a deer. I did a video, I got a guy for that. Well, I don't have a guy for that. Why would I want to have a guy for that when I should learn how to do it myself? I don't know, think about it. If you can do it yourself, it's usually a lot faster. You're not waiting. Right now, I'm waiting to get the chain fixed on my six-wheeler. Because in that spot, I do have a guy for that. He does a better job. So at the end of the month, on the 30th, I'll drop off the six-wheeler. And they'll repair it and the six-wheeler will be back in business. But when it comes to food, it doesn't take that much to set up and learn how to prepare food for the table. And now, if any of you are watching this and you want to, you're planting a garden for the first time, you're going to have a big harvest in the fall, which is great. But what you got to think about right now is how you're going to preserve that harvest. Because right now, getting canning jars and canning lids and canning supplies, you can do it right now in the spring. It's not like it used to be, but you can get your supplies right now. But if you wait until harvest time to go collect your mason jars, your canning jars, and your lids and your rings and all of that for canning, you're going to find the supply is going to be, number one, if you can find it, going to be expensive, and number two, you might not be able to get it at all. So that wipes out your ability to be able to preserve your harvest. Now you can freeze a lot of food. I'm not big on running the freezer for a couple reasons. Food will only last so long in a freezer before it's spoiled. Freezer burnt, just everything. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You know, especially fish. You know, fish is only good in the freezer for maximum 6 months. Is it still edible? Yeah, you can still eat it. Can you get some vitamins out of it? Yeah, you can get some vitamins out of it. But do you want to eat a good fish? You know, do you want to eat good meal? And by preserving it in a canning jar, you can extend that period of time. So learning how to can isn't that difficult, isn't that costly to get set up. You need a pressure canner. And now is a good time to purchase a pressure canner and get it on the shelf. Learning it, it's not that difficult. Being afraid of it, you don't have to be afraid of it. Respect it. Read the directions. But canners of today are not the canners of our grandmothers. There are safety valves built into a pressure canner that takes care of that for us. It still doesn't mean you can walk off and leave it. Once you've got something in a canner, then you stand there, not stand there, but you got to be around. You got to be there. You got to keep an eye on it. You have to keep the temperature so that it remains at whatever you have chosen. You know, 10 pounds, 15 pounds pressure for a set amount of time. Anytime that I can meat, fish, or anything like that, it's 90 minutes at 10 pounds. Constant. And I've never had an issue with that. I've been doing it that way for as many years as I've been canning. I don't grow a garden because I get what I want from the wild. What I mean by that is I would rather can meals instead of vegetables. I'd rather you're gonna have to do some trading off here. You know, you either have X amount of time for gardening or you have X amount of time for being out in the bush and gathering out there. So that's where I decided years ago to put in my time. The stuff that I can are meals, or stuff that can be turned into a meal, like homemade baked beans. Very simple to can your own and can up 20 pints. 20 pints is a meal. Meal for two sometimes, or whatever. So that's so I do plan a lot of homemade baked beans. Beef soup, another good one. I have a raspberry patch here. Not raspberry, I have a rhubarb patch. I have 3 of them. I raked them off today so that they can start getting full sun and start turning into my rhubarb patch. There's a lot that I can do with rhubarb. I use the rhubarb as my treats. I don't, I think everything at the grocery store is too expensive when it comes to, especially if you want to buy a treat. If it costs you $2 or $3 for that little hand pie, that's pretty expensive when you're talking about putting a few on the shelf. And like anything, they don't stay on the shelf long anyways. So by having raspberries and getting my hands on some strawberries, I can make raspberry pie filler, which is great for hand pies, as well as even a 9-inch pie, all that stuff. And the minute we start talking pie, everybody says, "Oh my goodness, that's hard." It's not. Not if you keep it simple, stupid. And if you've been watching any of my videos in the past few weeks, I've been talking about simple recipes. I call them camp recipes. Anything you can do at camp needs to be simple because you don't have all the luxuries of what's at home. So these are just different things, and what I like about a rhubarb patch, it comes up every year. It's free. You pick it, it comes back, you pick it again. every year I have ample supply of rhubarb. Now, let's talk some trading, or just giving away a jar or two to some friends or whatever. I can make strawberry rhubarb jam, jelly. I can make rhubarb pie filler for pies. And it's all free. You know, you go to the grocery store and you buy a bag of apples, that's going to cost you $5 or $6 for an apple pie. Well, I love rhubarb. So, that's free. That's free pie filler for me. Them are the type of things that can be done at home to cut down on your grocery bill. And that's what this is all about. And today, if you're hanging out for this, you're just hanging out for, let's call it a live stream. I'm building a bucket. Like I said, the ice is out. Hey, another trap done, other than putting the rope on. The ice is out, so these will go out and they will fish for me. It must be coffee time. Got a piece of plastic in there that time. Well, while we're chewing the fat, I got another project that I have decided. I thought about it for close to a year now. And I've decided, I finally made up my mind that I'm going to do it. Why did it take up so much time? Because it's going to take a while to do it. Any of you who've been following my videos have followed last year. I built a brand new camp. I built Beaver Creek deer hunting cabin. And I love it over there. It's a mile back in the woods. It's quiet. It has all the animals that I want and need. Oh, it's got moose, it's got bears, it's got water. You don't set up a bear bait or a bear stand without it being near some kind of a water. And preferably a stream. Preferably a stream and a swamp. If you can get in a swamp, that's even better. Bears don't have air conditioning. So, by having a swamp, they got areas that they can go get cool in. And they like to follow the water's edge for food. So that when I was looking at Beaver Creek and where I you know, just fell into a good lucky thing over there. It had all the ingredients for bear. But I got my cabin built, like you all see. And when I built the cabin, it was bone dry. when I pick my spot. Well, some of you might be able to see where we're headed now. Maybe not. Last fall, when the heavy rains came, the area around the cabin became very wet. The cabin itself is sitting good, but the area around the cabin where you'd be hanging out is very wet. So, I decided that I need to move the cabin. Now you know why I thought about it for a year. I thought about it all winter. But my hopes was that when I got there in the spring, most of the water would be gone and I'd be back to what I had last June. Well, that didn't happen. I was in there 2 weeks ago with the six-wheeler, the day that I broke down. I finished going into the cabin. With my father's four-wheeler. I had to hike out that day, borrow his four-wheeler, drive back in, drop off. I was bringing in a sled for the cabin for hauling materials, as well as I was bringing in a big trunk full of dishes for the cabin. Pots and pans, cast iron. So I finished getting that stuff hauled in there. And when I got to the cabin, it was very wet. But 1,000 feet to the east is very dry. I've got a wet spot to go through to get there. Got a wet spot to go through to get there. But that'll be worth it, I guess. Whoop! You guys didn't remind me to put my handle in. Anyway, so we're going to move it 1,000 feet to the east. I need to move it forward from what you can see. I need to move it forward about, oh, I don't know, 50 feet. And then from there, I can start moving it 1,000 feet to the east. Now this is all going to be done by hand because you can't get any equipment into where this cabin is. It's a mile back in the woods with too much wetlands to get a piece of equipment over. And I would be afraid of losing a piece of equipment in that areas that has no bottom. So how am I going to do it? Well, I've got it figured out. I am very fortunate. I'm not fortunate that I made a bad decision on where to locate that cabin, but I am fortunate that I have the know-how and equipment to move it. "30 years ago, I built up a handheld roller system. "30 years ago, I built up a handheld roller system. Now I'll show it to you. It won't be today. It's 4 pieces of iron, and it's 4 wheels that fit perfectly over this piece of iron track. I can haul it in behind the 6-wheeler, 2 pieces at a time. Like I said, it's 4 pieces. I can haul it in behind the 6-wheeler 2 pieces at a time, I do believe. If not, then it'll be 1 piece. I'll load it up too and see how I go. And if the going's not good. Alrighty, I'm back. Had to leave for a minute or two. Battery went dead on the camera. I can only blame you guys. So I had to go figure out where I left off. We were talking about the roller system and all of that. How am I going to move that cabin 1,000 to 1,500 feet with no equipment? It's all going to be by hand. But while I was figuring that out, I realized that we didn't shoot the gun for, at least a half hour. We'll save some for a minute. That's just in case. That's just in case one of the neighbors was sneaking up on me. Having a snack. Box of raisins. So anyways, while we're still building these traps, I have 4 or 5 more I want to build today. And then I need to go to the hardware store and get a hog ring plier. A hog ring to tie the rope on with. How this roller system works, and I've ordered the lumber for it, you need to have some blocking to set it on. And I will videotape the entire process. Because I would dare say for most of you, thinking that moving a building by yourself would be an enormous undertaking, and it is. It's not something that's going to take a minute, that's for darn sure. But it's going to be like a camper. It's going to be a camper on wheels. So wherever the building stops is where I'll use it that night. So I'm not gonna bust it out and try to get it done in a day or two. It'll depend. If I can get a couple nephews over there that want to spend a long weekend, now that could be an option. But my plan is to get my roller system over there, and what it is, it's 4 pieces of steel. They're 12 feet long, 4 pieces of 12-foot steel, square. And it has a tooth, so it fits inside of each other. So once you push them together, you've got 24 feet of rail. And there is 4 rail cars that I had built that sit on top of that rail, and they sit on all 4 corners of the cabin. And when I built the cabin, I always build my buildings with a 6x6 joist that runs down, a beam that runs down both sides of the cabin. Mainly for jacking, but also for moving, if you ever had to move a building. And in my trade, you might have to repossess a building. So I'd put these rails under them for even repossessing a building. I never had to, but it was always there that I could if I had to. So then, after I got the building setting on the roller system, my plan, now you can do it by hand. You can push the building. How you do that is you have your roller system perfectly level, and then slightly uphill from where you're coming from, so that you can get on the back side of that building and just lean on it and push it forward. And on big buildings, that's really important, because this is the way it is. If the building is moving hard, you're getting ready to screw up. That's plain and simple. This stuff either moves very easy or moves very hard. And if it's moving very hard, you're getting ready to drop a building. But on this little tiny cabin, that's not going to be an issue. For one thing, the roller system is way overkill for a building this size. So what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to put a great big eye bolt in the center of the building that I can hook my 6-wheeler to. Whether it be the winch that's on the front of the 6-wheeler or hook it to the 2-inch ball that's on the back of it. I will probably choose the winch, because then I can have a bird's eye view of everything that's going on as I move the building. Then I will back up with my winch, hook it up to the building, and then pull it forward. I'll be able to move it roughly about, probably 16 to 18 feet per move. And then you go to the back side of the building, pull off the 2 pieces of square tubing that you're not using, pull them to the front, slide them back on, and start the process all over again. And that's how it will be done until you reach the high ground. So, and like I said, I'll bring you along, and we'll have we're gonna be camping in several different spots. What I have got for blocking coming is 4-inch by 10-inch by 12 feet, and I will cut all that down to 3 feet in length, because you got to have a good flat surface stuff to set on. And like I said, this is very wet ground, so I'll be able to spread out the load just like a snowshoe. I will have some pieces that are 4 feet long, and that way it's just like a snowshoe. The bigger the snowshoe, the more you can hold. So I'll be able to spread them out underneath my rail system over the wet area. I have a really bad wet area to go through in one spot, but then as soon as I get over that wet area, then I will be setting on good ground. So the first thing we're going to move is the fire pit and the benches. And that way I've got and then we'll be starting to build the campsite where the camp's going to go after that. That way we've got a good place to go, have lunch and all that while the camp is on the move. So that's the plan. And I will be doing that the 1st of June, just as soon as it dries up just a little bit. We're going to get the stuff over there. And I'm also going to get all the stuff over there for the hunt shacks. And both of them projects are going to start going at the same time. But anyways, I think it's time to shoot the gun one more time. Let it rip. Let the neighbors know that we're in town. Plus, it's just plain fun to do. Just plain fun to do. I need to get that cabin where there's some dry ground, because that cabin is going to be a massive grocery store for me. Between Beaver Creek and the animals that are in the bush, but just plain being a big swamp makes that area full of wild food. Full of wild food. I just got to make sure that I can stay there comfortably. And I can stay there the way it is. But there's a difference between comfortably and staying there. I put this place together for the family for long term. So in order for it to be long term for the family, I really need to remedy this problem. We will call it a do-over. What I should have done is probably taken a year and studied things before I built the cabin. But I didn't want to waste a whole year. And it won't take me long to get that building moved. The biggest building I ever moved was 28 feet by 40, 2.5 story. I moved it out in the driveway. I put in a foundation. And then we jacked the house up 8 feet and put the house back on top of the foundation. It took 600 pieces of blocking. It took 5 2-ton come-alongs because we moved it by hand. On the roller system that I'm talking about, with rollers, and we had some other wooden timbers because I didn't have enough roller system to cover the whole building. But there are more than one way to move a building. There's more than one way to move a building, so. that's what we did. I am looking forward to eel pie. And I am also looking forward to next week. What's today? Today is Wednesday. So next week I will move in and start my lake trout fishing and eel trapping. No matter what goes on in this country in the next 6 months to a year, I will be able to feed the family. You say, but they won't eat eel. They will too. This eel pie and these steak pies are so good. But if you like home cooking, there is no way you won't like it. Especially the steak pie. That is some good. Well, there's another one. That's just in case you weren't paying attention. Alrighty. I come up with an idea. It seems as how I got your attention with the 44 Magnum. It dawned on me that some of you might be thinking, well, I might want to try building an eel pot. Well, for one thing, hang on to it. So, I might want to try to build an eel pot, but I'm not sure about cleaning them. You know, preparing them for the table and all of that. You know, it all sounds good. You know, it all sounds good and all that, catching eels and all that, but I'm not sure about cleaning them. Well, I'm going to tell you, cleaning an eel is very, very simple. Because it doesn't take much cleaning. Because just about the entire fish is edible. Now, there's a couple things you probably ought to know about eels. One is when you catch an eel, he's wicked slimy. Now, I mean, you might think you know what slimy fish is, but I'm talking slimy. So, let's deal with that right out of the gate. We've got an eel on our fish pole, or we've got an eel in a trap. Well, let's deal with the eel in a trap. There's absolutely nothing about an American eel that will hurt you. So let's get that right out of the way. It's an ugly looking fish. And when you catch it, it'll want to wrap around your arm. Because that's all it can do. You know. An eel's defense system is slime. That's it. If another fish comes along and wants to take a bite of Mr. Eel, well, he slimes them. And they get so much slime in their mouth that they can't eat Mr. Eel. That's why they got slime. But you, the fisherman, how do you deal with that slime? Well, it's easy. I buy my salt in the bulk. I buy 50-pound bags of salt. And then I put it in a 5-gallon bucket. Always have. Not because of the shortage, not because of nothing, other than I've always done it that way. Why? Well, if you get a bear skin or a deer skin, it's good to salt it down. As well as there's a lot of fish and stuff that I salt water down with a brine. Saltwater brine. Well, turns out that salt can take care of that slime as well. So what you do is I always bring an old cooler. Nothing fancy, because it doesn't have to be a fancy cooler, just an old fish cooler. An old picnic cooler. Old camp cooler, whatever. You just want a good lid, that's all. Or you can do a tote, you can do anything. But what you do is in the bottom of that cooler, you lay in a couple of inches of salt. Right down the bottom of it. A couple inches of salt. And when you catch that eel, you throw that eel in that cooler. And that salt will number one, stop that eel from making it. And number two, that eel won't be slimy anymore. Now, that same trick might work on pike. I'm not sure. But pike is another one of those fishes that is very slimy. So it might be worth a try. So now you've caught your eel, you've got him in the boat, you got him in your cooler of salt. Now you're back at home with the eel, and you're getting ready to prep him for smoking, canning, freezing, whatever. So what you do, just a minute, I gotta drill some holes here. I'll tell you what you do. You take that eel, now I leave the heads on them until I'm actually putting them in the canning jar or in a freezing bag. And the reason I do that is I have to cut the eels down in size to hang them in my smoker. My smoker is not set up for a 4-foot eel. So I cut the eel down to size so he fits in my smoker. And then I smoke them for, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. Light smoke, no heat. I want a cold smoke. And so I use the head to wire that portion of the eel, so I can put a wire in there and hang him from my smoker. But when you're cleaning him, you clean him just like you would clean a brook trout or some kind of fish like that, where all you do is open up the belly and get rid of the guts. It's no more complicated than that. And then from there, like I said, you size him up to hang him in your smoker. And then when it's time to when it's time to put him in a canning jar, then I have laid out on my meat board I think in the pint jars it's a little over 2 inches, 2.5 inches, something like that. So then I cut each piece of eel down to 2.5 inches tall, so that it'll stand up in a half pint jar. And then that eel is ready. And I did a video on canning eels back in my archives. And she's ready to go. So it's no more complicated than that. Now there's another way too. And the other way is you can skin the eel. I don't skin my eels because there's probably that's where all the vitamins are. Like with any fish. You take an eel, when you can him, you know what gelatin is? Well, when you can an eel, you not only get the oils that are in the fish, but you also get this gelatin, like would be on ham if you cook it, or if you was to boil out the bones and let it cool. All of that would be gelatin that comes out of the bones. You know, any kind of animal bone. But this gelatin comes from the skin. So I leave it in. The texture of the skin when you're eating it is a little different. It's completely cooked. There's no bones left in the jar at all when it comes to pressure canning, because pressure canning an eel dissolves all of the bones, makes them edible. The actual backbone, right where the head is, you'll see that a little crunchy. You can throw that out if you want. I don't. I eat it. You know, it's bone. It's it's vitamins. So it's the same thing with the skin. And if you wanted to skin an eel, same thing, you need his head on him. Nail his head to a tree or nail it to a board. Take your fillet knife, go around the head in a circle so you can break the skin free. Get onto it with a piece of pliers and then pull that skin right down to the tail. And now you've got a skinned eel, and you can do exactly the same thing on absolutely everything. Like I said, I don't do that because you're throwing away food, you're throwing away vitamins, you're throwing away the gelatin, which in the winter time, that's the energy part. You know, if you're out on the lake and you're cold, take and eat yourself some of that gelatin. It's just like eating a good hunk of pork. That'll fire up your insides and get your heat machine going, and it will make you some heat. So it's the same thing with that gelatin that's in an eel. But that's all there is to preparing an eel for the table. Yeah. Look at that. We've got another one. We're going to call this East Grand the movie. If you guys are hanging around, this is a day in the life of East Grand today. Important to get these traps ready. With any luck, I'm going to come back to the boat landing with 2 salmon, a big old lake trout, and a boatload of eel that day. And if that's the case, that would be possible to show up at my cabin with 50 or more pounds of fresh fish for the freezer and the canning jar. Right here in the great state of Maine. And I do believe that if I could get you to go after these eels, that you could do this even in your state. Even in your state. Now I can't guarantee it, but that's what I think. I'm running out of hooks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like I am going to be 2 hooks short. That's all right. I gotta go get a hog ring plier anyways, so that I can put the ropes on these tomorrow. Then I gotta finish prepping the boat. Tomorrow, get that ready to go. All of my canning supplies are already at the cabin. So I'm not too concerned about that. It will be very nice to take a day and work on putting up some fresh fish. You got it. Another way for the boys. to be able to put food on their table. They just don't know it yet. See, if you wait until the last minute, you're behind the 8 ball. So by planning ahead, I can be that much further ahead of the 8 ball. I want to be at least a year ahead of what's coming down the pike, no matter what it is. There's a few foods that I eat that most people turn their nose up to at first. But if I can get them to try it, they're quite amazed at how good it tastes. One of those animals is a porcupine. I've had people sit at my table, and I know they like it because they go back for seconds and thirds. If you don't like something, you're not going back for second and thirds. But porcupine cooked in a Dutch oven on the wood stove, oh my goodness. Or any slow cooker. I mean, you don't have to have a Dutch oven. You can put it in the oven and slow cook it at home. You can put it in a Dutch oven and cook it over a campfire. The trick is just cook it slow. I treat almost everything like it is pork. Like bear meat, I believe, should be cooked well done. I accomplish that in a slow cooker. Makes it tender. Buy brand new buckets and drill holes in them. Well, that doesn't make much sense now, does it? think we're getting faster at that. Every once in a while, well, let's have a cup of coffee. If you stuck around for East Grand the movie, thank you very much. I just figured we'd hang out today. You know, I can keep doing the 10-minute. I can keep doing the 10-minute videos and all that. But every once in a while, I have some viewers that like to just plain hang around. So we've been hanging around, pushing out some eel pots, and making plans for next week's fishing trip. So, thank you very much. And I will see you in the next one. And don't forget to have your coffee with me.